So we love tradition, we love the pageantry of everything. And so our question to you is, what are some Oklahoma traditions that we should be aware of? I mean, obviously there's, some things that we inherently know about just from being around the sport, but what are some that we should be aware of? Maybe well known that you want to kind of rehash, or what maybe there's some that are a little more obscure that we're not aware of.
Yeah, like when it comes to traditions at OU, because I feel like people, when you bring up like what are some traditions that go on during OU games before, during, or after, I think people have this idea of like Texas A&M is the poster child for this. They have choreographed chants and cheers, and they've got stuff before the game. They've got
Matt's
stuff.
triggered.
Oh, bro. A&M's a cult. I don't care what anyone says. A&M's a
I didn't.
cult.
I didn't. I didn't say it was a good thing. I'm just saying that like they have all the
I love it.
cheers. They've got them all down. I mean, even Oklahoma State, whenever they score a touchdown, they do like the waving wheat thing. OU doesn't really have anything other than for the last 70 to 80 years, we've been one of the best programs in college football. We are college football, and we've been in a conference where we just kick your ass and then we go home. So that's our tradition. So it sounds very boring. So we've got the schooner, like everybody knows the Sooner schooner. Boomer Sooner is it's probably the most played fight song in college football history, not just because OU is typically good, but because even if we're down 20 points, you will hear Boomer Sooner be played if we move the ball forward. Um, and then, like other than that, there's just not a lot of tradition. I mean, there are some things that start because the fans make things happen and it's silly. And I have always assumed every fan base does this, but whenever the opposing team scores in the north end zone, because the south end zone has the big scoreboard, like at
Mhm.
the very top. So the north end zone, there's nothing up there except for, just the brick wall and then, certain death if you were to like look over and bend over too far. So whenever an opposing team scores and kicks their extra point with their football with their logo on it, the fans just throw the ball up while the boys are on the field saying, "Please come back, please give us the ball back, please don't be assholes." And then the fans throw the ball over the brick wall, and then everybody cheers. So like,
All right.
yeah, it's a program that they expect to win. They've been, whether it be the Big Eight, even back in those days where you had Nebraska, who was a blue blood top 5 program every single year. You played Texas every year as a non-conference opponent, and they're always like a top 25 program year in and year out. But for the most part, you're playing Oklahoma State, you're playing Iowa State, you're playing Kansas State, all these programs that just aren't at the level. And so you just kind of find yourself showing up for game day, vastly outnumbering any opposing fan base because you don't play Texas and Norman every other year. You play them in Dallas. And so it kind of builds this tradition of, yeah, we're just here to have fun and watch our team win by a large margin. And so, even when that doesn't happen, but OU wins, people are still upset. So OU's in for a culture shock in a lot of different ways coming into the SEC because, like I said, every fan base cares. I mean, Kentucky, I'm sure will bring as many fans as Texas Tech
There's gonna be a
would bring.
lot of Kentucky
Oh
fans
yeah.
Yeah,
coming.
I'm like
There's gonna be a lot.
OU's got
There's
South.
gonna be a lot of Tennessee fans when Tennessee comes too. You better what? That's gonna be a
That's
lot
the
of
thing
people.
about the SEC is I think like
They travel
every
well.
school travels well, right? Like every school is going to go where they're at. We are psychopaths. We all have bought in. We've drank the Kool-Aid. We all have the same psychopathy.
Right.
Um, and we're so about the pageantry and the pride. And I think, and we've talked about it before on the show, where yes, NFL teams have their own thing, right? Like absolutely those fandoms are legit, they're real, but there's something special about college because if you went there, you do feel a part of it. You may not have ever stepped on the
You can say
field.
us.
Yeah, but
No,
you
no,
like
don't
you've
start that argument again.
no, but you've bought into it. And if you have a family member that's bought into it, you've been, on the field maybe for a game, or you've known someone that's played there. There's just this sense of belonging in college to your team that is a little different than in the NFL.
Yeah,
And I think it's so special. Yes, it makes us emotionally unstable. Yes, but it is so special. And I think in the SEC, and you guys will find we travel. We travel
Yeah.
really well.
To
And
your point
we
about
love
Kentucky,
we
I
love the
believe
tailgate.
when Kroger Field is full, I've heard that it's the equivalent. If it was a city, it would be the third largest city in Kentucky.
Mm.
So, um,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's something. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I speak for the entire fan base, but that's something that I've looked forward to because, like I mentioned, you don't play Texas in a home and home situation. You play them at a neutral site every year. So the only other program that is in any way, shape, or form like close to you in terms of historical prestige, present prestige, fan base size, you don't get a chance to like host the legion of fans that would come to your town. Obviously, when OU and OSU play, there are a lot of OSU fans because a lot of OSU fans live in Oklahoma City or they live in Norman. It's a small state; it's easy to get around. And then, if Kansas State's good, they'll travel. Iowa State is a very sneaky, weird, good travel school because even for the most part, they've been bad most of my fandom, but they would still bring by far more fans than a Texas Tech or a Baylor would, which didn't make a lot of sense to me. But it's probably a lot of similar. There's maybe some similar culture to that of the SEC, where Iowa State is like, yeah, like we're not that we may not be good, but this is what we have in Iowa, and this is what we love, and this is how we connect to the rest of the country. And so they just jump on the bandwagon. But no, that's going to be fun. Like OU's got South Carolina coming to town after the Texas game this year, and I've just kind of made the bold projection, I guess, of just saying things like South Carolina is going to bring more fans than half the Big 12 would consistently bring to Norman because one, it's the first time they've ever played each other. It could be a fun little, it could be just a fun little experience for South Carolina fans, I guess, like let's go to Oklahoma. But it's one of those things where OU is whether they be good in 2024 or not, they're still a bastion of the sport. And if I was a South Carolina fan, I would look at that potential game and say, yeah, I'd love to go and watch a game in that stadium.